beginning, they don't know how to read labels, right? They just see keto on the front and they put it in their cart and like, is this keto? This has to be keto. We just trust manufacturers too much. And yeah, that book like completely revealed to me, it was such an eye opener. And I'm like, I'm not falling for that. No way, I'm done.
Yes. Yes, yes. So, any other uniqueness to women when it comes to the ketogenic diet? Definitely focusing on real food, definitely being mindful of your period the week before, having the carbohydrate, and then the week that you're bleeding, having the strict keto. Are there other kind of common themes that you see amongst your clientele?
Yeah, so when it comes to the hormone situation, I always recommend that, and I go in detail in my program about every hormone and how to eat and how to do keto. But a few things that I do want to mention here is if you have PCOS or extra testosterone or estrogen, dairy is probably not the best idea or the best way for you to do keto until you reverse or heal that. So for those type of women, I really recommend that they avoid dairy if all possible. And I always preach clean keto, and I think that like people think that like I'm like a cheese hater because I'm always like dairy, clean keto, dairy free. I love cheese. I mean, I can live off of like cheese, wine, and chocolate for the rest of my life. However, what the research has shown is that when it comes to specific hormone issues or gut issues for that matter, dairy is not the best option. So if you have PCOS or extra or too much testosterone or estrogen, I would recommend that you limit your dairy intake.
Is it
Also with estrogen,
is it because
sorry,
of
go
the
ahead.
insulogenic effects? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this is fascinating. Is it because dairy is insulogenic, which then impacts those other hormones?
Yes, that, and because of the way the dairy is made nowadays. Like 50 years ago, I probably wouldn't say this, but the way that dairy is made now, most of it is very laden with hormones.
Yes.
And so if you already have hormonal issues, you're eating the dairy, now you're consuming even more hormones. You're just, it's very difficult then to reverse that PCOS or lower that testosterone.
Unless you
Now,
find
that
raw
being
dairy,
said,
right?
yeah. Now, unless you're eating raw dairy, which I will say that most people don't because A, it's really expensive and it's hard to find.
Yeah, I
So
live
yeah, a
in
little
South
bit of raw
Carolina, so
dairy.
it's legal here in South Carolina.
Oh,
So
is it?
yeah, I've got a store literally a mile from my house,
Wow.
a little country store, and they got raw milk and raw cream and raw cheese. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And with that, I would say then yeah, go ahead. But still, you don't want to do too much, right? Because dairy also can stall your weight for other reasons,
Yes.
inflammation, make you bloated, all that. However, like I live in Ohio, and raw dairy is illegal. I would love to get raw milk, but to make homemade kefir, but it's illegal. So most of the dairy, I mean, I see this all the time, right? Facebook, Instagram, like everyone's just like pouring that shredded cheese on all their food, and I'm like, I don't like judge the way people eat, but it's like if you have certain hormone conditions, you should probably avoid that for a little while to heal your body first. And
Yes.
then with estrogen, estrogen dominance, I want to talk about that for a minute because a lot of women have that too, and I experienced that myself. But if you do have estrogen dominance, then conventional red meat is probably not such a great idea for you because of the hormones that are in conventional red meat, right? So you might want to really be careful with that and either choose grass-fed or lower your meat intake and really focus on doing more of the non-starchy vegetables and maybe switch to more net carbs instead of total carbs because you want your liver to metabolize that estrogen out of your body. And to do that, you want to help it by more insoluble fiber. So this was my issue. I ate so much conventional red meat because my husband loves red meat. We're a big, smoking family. We love to smoke in the summer. And I found myself experiencing too much estrogen. So I really had to take that down and alter that. So it's like, depends on where you're at and what you're dealing with. You really have to personalize and customize the keto diet for you.
Yeah, and that's a constant battle is trying to get that customization down. By the way, there's only 9 states in America where milk is legal raw. And other dairy raw. If you want to look up a list to see if your state is on that, realmilk.com. It's the Weston A. Price Foundation created that website as a resource to teach about the benefits of getting real milk as opposed to pasteurized and, like you said, chemical laden, all these hormone laden types of things in traditional dairy. So thanks for that information, Lesya. All right, you guys, we're going to reset the room and come to you guys because I know you have lots of questions about customizing the keto diet for women as opposed to what us dudes do. And we have a wonderful expert here today. Lesya has been so generous with her time. She hangs out here in Keto for the Soul. I hardly ever see you pop up to any of the groups, though, Lesya.
I know. I'm usually just listening because I'm like multitasking. I'm like, well, I don't think I can come on now, but I'll listen in.
Yes. Well, your presence here is welcomed, and I'm glad we were able to formalize you as a speaker here today on my show. But let's reset the room, and this is Keto for the Soul. Hit the little green house at the top of the screen and be sure to subscribe. Lots of wonderful content. I'm finding myself on here way too much during the day, but I try, like Lesya, to just tune in. I don't always engage, but I always listen, and it's just nuggets of wonderfulness all day long. So go check it out. Be sure you follow me and Lesya and everyone up here on the stage. Definitely lots of great content providers as we do our thing. But let's go to questions now. Amy, you're on deck. Amy, Bobamy, there you are.
Good morning. I have bad aim apparently. Good morning. I don't necessarily have a question. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for bringing this information into the community. I think, like Jimmy, like I'm passionate about the same thing and teaching women how to keto for their body and their hormones and for a lifestyle. Because, it's not talked about enough, Lesya, about the need for carbs. Like women do sometimes need for hormonal health to have some of those carbs. And talking about inflammation and how our food choices impact all that. So I just want to applaud you guys for getting this into the community and talking about it so that all these women who are kind of feeling stuck and like keto might not be working for them, that they can start to find these answers. So cool. I'm so happy to be here and listening, and it's awesome.
Thank you, Amy. Lesya?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like we have to talk more about this and how it's different and how different hormones affect us and the food we eat and all that. So I think it's going to take women like us to speak up about that and share our experiences and our knowledge so more women can learn about that rather than just following the traditional way of how everybody does keto or all the dirty, lazy, all types of those ketos.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. Johanna, you're up next. What you got?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me up on the stage. I have one question. I wanted to share about when you said about the PCOS. I actually reversed my PCOS with keto. Like my cyst completely disappeared. So that was pretty awesome. An awesome side effect that I was not expecting from going on the keto life. So thanks for also sharing that information so everybody else can hear it. And my question is, have you worked with breastfeeding moms? And if you have, what difference have you noticed hormonally or just them doing keto and any adjustments that you recommended to breastfeeding moms?
Yeah, great question, Joanna. By the way, congratulations for reversing your PCOS. That is so amazing. I have a friend that did the same thing, and she had infertility for 5 years and reversed her PCOS by doing a low-carb diet, and it's just the power of it. It's truly fascinating. As far as breastfeeding go, I actually experimented this on myself, so I could tell you firsthand of what I did. I don't have any breastfeeding clients yet, but when I had my second baby, at this point I was familiar with keto and I knew I wanted to do keto. So what I did is as soon as, I gave birth, I started a low carb diet again. And the problem that I found was that my traditional number of carb threshold, which was 30 grams of total carbs, was way too low because I was burning through that really quickly. And what I noticed is that my milk supply started to decrease. I was also having my ketones were like 8, 8.0, 9.0. It was insane. And that's not obviously unless you have, type 1 diabetes, that's not going to be a problem for you for ketoacidosis or anything. But it was crazy to see that number. And I also noticed I was feeling very nauseous and like dizzy. And that's when I realized, like, oh my God, I need to really up my carbohydrates. So I ended up experimenting, and I would add in 10-gram increments at a time. So whatever your carb number is right now, if you're going to be breastfeeding, I would increase by 10 grams each week until you find that perfect spot where you feel good, you're still in ketosis, and your milk supply isn't going down. Because I found that at 30 grams, my milk supply was going down because I was seriously like sick. But my sweet spot was like 60 to 70 grams of total carbs. And what I found was I was still able to maintain nutritional ketosis, and my milk supply, and my milk was actually very good. Like, it was very fatty. So, you know, the ratio between the fat and the water, it was really fatty, which is awesome because it's the best for babies. So what I would say is I believe that you need a higher carb number when you are breastfeeding, and it's all about experimenting and finding that sweet spot and not just going traditional 20 grams or 30 grams to make sure that you have that milk supply and that you also feel good.
Johanna?
Is that helpful?
Yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you so much for that information. I did notice that, like, because I'm breastfeeding right now, so I did notice that when I have a little higher carb, I do feel a little better, and it does increase my milk production too.
Yes, just experiment with that number, right? I always talk to my women about like being an empowered experimenter. Just experiment, increase 10 grams at a time per week until you find that perfect threshold, and then go from there.
Well, and people so fear carbohydrates. I hate that that's become the moniker in the ketogenic community. Carbs are not bad. Targeting them for specific purposes like what you just described, I think is beautiful. But see, how do you explain the nuance without getting into a long... There's no bumper sticker that says, well, when you're breastfeeding, here's what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard. By the way, PCOS, Johanna, you can look at it like insulin resistance of the ovaries. Just like type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance of the pancreas. We could go down the line of all the ways insulin resistance manifests itself. But yeah, it like clockwork. I have talked to enough reproductive endocrinologists, Lesya, who basically put their patients with PCOS on a low-carb diet, and voila, in a few months, they are pregnant as all get out.
I know, it's so amazing.
Like clockwork. Thank you, Johanna. Rachel, you're up next.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Lesya. Johanna, I love that question.
Yeah, what you got for us?
I'm curious. I think I kind of got my answer with your last response to Johanna, but do you have kind of a range or reach for your carbs that you want to get on your when you do?
I'm sorry, you were cutting out for me. What was the last part?
Oh, when you are cycling carbs while you're keto during your monthly cycle, what grams do you shoot for? I know it's individual, but just curious, like if there's a range that I should be shooting for, and also what are your favorite carbs to cycle through?
So, of course, the answer, it depends. That's usually the answer for every nutritional question out there. But I will say that personally, for me, it also depends on, like, are you active or not? So if you're active and you work out, then you can do more carbs, versus if you're not very active, then you might want to do lower carbs. So for me personally, on my higher carb days, I do around 100 grams to 130 grams. And again, that's just for me. That's depending on like how much I work out and how fat adapted I am. I also feel like for me and my clients, I always have them do at least 90 days of clean keto to get fat adapted. and to get their body used to burning fat as fuel.